Take a girl and a guy, and they fall madly in love and form a family. Sprinkle in some counseling degrees and a doctorate, a dream of transforming relationships as we know it. And 20 years later, we give you power couple Dr. Ray and Jean Kadkhodaian. And this is their podcast, Couples Synergy.
Welcome back to another episode of Couples Synergy with Dr. Ray and Jean. I'm Dr. Ray.
And I'm Jean, and this is our podcast about love, marriage, and relationships.
Be sure to check us out online on our Facebook page, Couples Synergy, or our website, couplesynergy.com. And be sure to subscribe to our podcast or send us any suggestions on topics you'd like to hear more about. And now on to Couples Synergy, an in-depth look at love, marriage, and relationships, where we bring you our experiences working with thousands of couples for nearly 20 years.
You know, every day we get to hear intimate details about a couple's celebrations, disappointments, and everyday challenges. We've often wished these stories were shared because we know we are more similar than different. And so we've created not only an avenue we can hear about people's intimate lives, but an atmosphere where people come over to our home pub, pour a drink, and share their stories.
People like today's guests, Mary and Claudiu.
You got it.
Awesome. Thanks. It's terrible when I butcher someone's name.
Right.
But I've grown up with my name being butchered for years and years.
I saw that on the way over, and we were trying to figure out exactly how to say it. But I understand where you're coming from because my last name is Seinashi with a Z.
Oh.
So.
Yeah, we were trying to figure that out, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Seinashi.
Yeah.
Oh.
Seinashi.
This is a
That's
pioneering episode.
It is.
Because you guys are our first couple. We actually met online, and we haven't met you until today.
You guys
So
are
welcome.
awesome.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for coming out. Thanks for being in the Jaxie's pub.
It's nice. It's very welcoming.
Oh, and also this is being recorded video, so it's also going to be on YouTube.
It's going to be on
so you
YouTube
can watch us.
as well. So you can see our facial expressions when Jean and I banter.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. We don't do that.
You don't banter at all? Oh.
I'm being sarcastic.
Let's start digging, Jean. All right. So, before we get to your story, why don't you guys tell us a little bit about yourselves? How old are you? What do you guys do for a living?
Ladies first.
All right. I am 38. Well, I'll be 38 next month. And I have two avenues of work. One is what I like I said earlier, what I like to call my muggle job. It's the grind, the Monday through Friday. I work for a medical distributor.
No. Okay.
And primarily customer service, and it's near to home, quick, 5 minutes to and fro. And then weekends, early morning, what I call the witching hour, between 4 and 6. And then after work, I do the Six House, which is the coaching, the shadow coaching and holistic wellness coaching.
Which you'll be able to hear more about on our Monday episode, because we are also going to highlight you as Ask Our Expert.
Oh, that's awesome. Yay me and you.
So I'm 41, and for my day job, I do roadway maintenance. So I'm out in the roadways, and that's what pays the bills. And the rest of the stuff is essentially martial arts related and information related with regards to martial arts. So all sorts of concealed carry, mixed martial arts. Yeah, I'm obsessed with all of it. I love it.
I've never
That's
met
cool.
anyone who's into that isn't also obsessed with it. It seems to be you're either really passionate about it or you don't know anything about it.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So
Yep.
We have swords and
Oh.
crazy knives and all
Well.
sorts of cool things all over.
You haven't
Uh-oh.
seen my den, actually.
Oh,
I look forward to seeing that then.
So can you guys tell us the story of how you met?
Yes. I think you should start that story.
Well, we met online. Simple enough.
What app?
We met on Plenty of Fish.
Okay.
Yeah. So for me, it was kind of being tired of the same old, and not having the opportunity to really get to the core. And so when I was online and I was scrolling through and I was like, whoa, I'm like, what's this girl about? And she just captured me. And I read her entire bio, and I was like, wow, she sounds amazing, like right up my alley, exactly what I'm looking for. And I sent her a message, and she responded back. And that was, I believe, on a
Sunday.
Well, when we started talking, was it Sunday? Well, so it was Sunday. So we talked all day, and then we got together for our first date on Monday night, and then again on Tuesday night, and then again on Saturday night. And basically, we were inseparable
It
since
just
then.
clicked.
Yeah.
Wow.
We hear this a lot.
Yeah.
Mhm,
So
we do.
it was, for me, it was really nice to be able to kind of explore in a way before you start with the whole dating and everything else, to kind of figure out if this person is aligned with what your core values are. And so I think at first it was kind of like I read everything and I was like, wow, this is great. Let's see if it's real.
Test.
So it was a lot of just seeing if she carries herself in the same way that she
Presents.
presented on her bio, and she did, and here we are.
Had you been on dating sites prior to Plenty of Fish?
I did, but not very long. It was only a couple of months. So I just got, like I said, I got fed up with the, real world, hey, let's get together, and then it falls through or
Right.
whatever. It was just, I think it was a time saver as I was working towards a lot of my stuff, and it just made it a little bit more realistic in terms of getting to know someone,
Streamlined it.
Yeah, so it was a convenience factor. And then I met her and I was like, wow, she's amazing.
Cool.
So what was your experience?
This is where it's kind of funny. So, as the universe would have it, that night that he messaged me, I was closing my account.
We've heard that before too.
And so, okay, so that's not unique. That's good. I had been on and off for maybe 2 years of different sites here and there, and I feel like I was just tired. I was tired, and he had what I like to lovingly poke at him, not the best profile.
I didn't think it was the worst profile.
I didn't say it was the worst.
But
No, I could not see his face, and he's got an amazing face. He's so handsome, and he's just so yeah.
blind as that.
But I couldn't see his face. The pictures were dark. There weren't that many. I smirked when he talked about my profile because it was literally as many characters. It was a mile
as
long.
allowed.
It was long, and his was kind of short. And I kind of was like, I don't know, but why not? Because the message was so genuine and so emotionally intelligent that I was like, right the fuck on. I can do this. Okay.
Ooh, what did he say?
I don't even remember at this point. I really don't. But I remember feeling that, like, wow, he talked about...
Which is really difficult to come across in a few words.
Right.
Yeah.
And it wasn't...
There's no tone. There's no body language. Yeah.
It was really impressionable. He did talk about being a gentleman, a savage gentleman, which...
Ooh.
Yeah. So there was that, but it was also inquisitive. So he had questions to ask in very small space. I'd say it was maybe a paragraph long, but it grabbed me, enough for me to say, you know what? I'm giving you my phone number. Let's take this to text because I'm closing down my page. And
Apparently you didn't need it anymore.
yeah. Yeah. So that happened.
Cool.
And
You took a chance.
Yeah. Yeah.
How did you guys know you were a couple?
well, I'm not sure exactly how we knew that we were a couple. It was just spending time together and feeling that energy, that it was like home, you know what I mean? That it was in the right place with the right person, and that our goals and our life philosophies and many of our experiences were very much aligned. And so, you know, in terms of looking at things as a couple, the way we talk about it is traveling on a journey and having your companion. And so we looked at one another and was like, is this going to be a good companion for my journey? And the answer was unequivocally yes for both of us. Mm-hmm. So I don't know exactly how long that took. It was probably a couple of weeks before we realized that there was some really great potential there and that we weren't going to be seeing other people.
So you didn't really have a conversation about it, or?
We did. It was right around a week and a half or 2 weeks. We didn't ask. Each of us just said, I'm not online. I'm not talking with anyone. I was already offline. Mm-hmm. But of course there's that trickle where people are still reaching out to you that you've talked with or whatever. And at that point we'd both said, we're not talking with anyone else. We're giving this a real fair shot and we're going to see how it goes, you know?
Cool.
Yeah.
And how long ago was this?
It was just hit 3 years on Thursday.
Yeah.
Thursday was
October
3 years.
10th was 3 years to the
October
mark
10th was the Monday we met.
Wow.
Cool.
Yeah. And we have a funny story about that Monday we met. And
yeah, we ended up trying to find an area. I was living in Glen Ellen at the time. And she was still in Roselle. And so we were trying to find an area that was like 50-50 that would make it convenient for both of us after work. So we settled on Dave & Buster's. And so we decided to get there. I got there first, and I was sitting at the bar waiting for her. And
did you have a little rose in your pocket?
I didn't have a rose in my pocket. No, I did not. But I was sitting at the bar waiting for her, and I thought I saw someone like walked in and then walked back out. That ended up not being the case, but she ended up calling me just a few minutes after that. And I said, I answered the phone. I saw it was her, and I said, "Hello, gorgeous." And she was like, but, you know, like kind of stuttered a little bit. And then she tells me afterwards that she had to call me to make sure that my voice was not, she ended up going on a date with a high talker. And so she was
a high talker.
A high talker.
So someone like a high pitched voice. Hi. Oh, because you had not spoken to him.
Yes,
it was
just online.
Oh.
It was one day.
Right.
It was
right.
one. It was 2 days, all day Sunday and then Monday.
What was going to be your game if he talked like this?
Well, I was going to be prepared.
Okay.
You know, this isn't. Yeah, I wasn't prepared. The one time I had a bad experience, and he saw that I wasn't prepared, and there was this. So, yeah. So I just wanted to know.
Sure.
And his voice was
baritone, nice,
like
works.
Marmalade. You know, it's just yummy.
See, that's very interesting because there are a lot of studies about pitch of voice, right? And how couples are attracted to the actual like frequency of vocal cords. Yeah. That's cool.
We were listening to Greg Braden yesterday, and he quoted heart math. I don't know if you're familiar with heart math. They do a lot of science around how our heart works in terms of emotional connection
and connection
like
with the brain, like brain and heart connection.
Biofeedback stuff. And he said that it takes 180 seconds for a human being to be in the space of another human being and know if that's their life partner. Mm-hmm. And we hear it a lot. Mm-hmm. It's a really interesting thing that they're like, yep, I know.
I'm not sure if I would agree with that, to be completely honest. Like, you may get a feeling of that, but I feel like you get to learn, like, people only present themselves in the image that they want you to perceive them in. They'll only let you in as what they want you to see.
Oh, it's not about anything they show you.
No.
It's about what your heart senses.
It's all subconscious.
And then he says that people that are not life partners might not feel that truth for 10 years. But that people...
Because they talk themselves out of it.
Yeah.
They use it,
Yeah, I don't know if it's 100% true. I think once we started, it was absolutely like that.
Yeah, the thing is that we hear this a lot about couples. They just click immediately, right? That connection there. And they can't really put their finger on it, why this person versus another person, right? But then also we talked to people who have divorced, and they said, I knew it from the beginning, but I didn't trust myself.
Which is interesting.
So you guys clicked right away.
Yeah.
So how did that happen?
I'm going to tell you. So when I saw him in person, when he came to the door of the restaurant, I was floored. And this is a story that my coworkers and my family know. He knows it too. But again, I didn't see any photos that gave true representation of what he looked like. All I knew was that he was very articulate, very emotionally intelligent. And those things made my heart flutter. That kind of connection, that kind of like, I can have a conversation with someone who cares about what I'm saying, and I'm receiving what he's saying, and that's big for me. And then he walked to the door, and I was like, holy smokes. Hey now, handsome. So
The whole package.
it was great. And then, this is going to sound strange, or maybe not, but reaching across the table when we finally went to the table to eat, and he was holding my hands, and I was like, these are my hands. These are my hands.
On the first date?
Oh, yeah. I didn't tell him that. Hell no, I didn't.
No, but I mean, like reaching out and holding
he
each
did.
other's hands on the
Yes.
first date. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And there wasn't
Here
much
we are.
more than that. There wasn't much more than that, but that was significant to me. Even my receiving that, my body allowing me to receive that was an important factor to me, because my head was all sorts of, what's going on right now?
And from my experience, when I first saw her and I gave her a compliment, I said, well, you're very pretty. And she said, thank you, and laughed. And her reaction to it was like a song on my heart. It was like, yeah. So it just clicked, one thing after another, and everything just felt right, you know?
Who said I love you first?
That was me. That was me.
How long into the relationship?
I think it was maybe a couple months in.
Yeah.
Something like that. It was a couple months about that. So it was just something that was like, it wasn't anything that I was going to fight, you know, in terms of expressing, but the feeling was there, and I wasn't like trying to rush anything, but I just wanted to let her know it. And that was that. So I wasn't expecting anything in return or anything, you know, in terms of how it was going to play out, but I just wanted to express myself. And
So your relationship progressed pretty quickly in a couple months.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And you were a single mom.
2 boys.
Did you have any concerns about that, and how did you introduce your kids?
I did, and then with him I didn't. So it was another one of those things, like, wait, what is going on right now, you know? So the little one at the time was 4. And
3.
Well, he just turned, maybe he was 3. Well, I don't know, because it was October, and he just turned 7. No, he was 4.
Was it? Oh,
He just
yeah,
turned
I think
4.
you're right.
He had just turned 4. His birthday's in August, and we met in October. So he just turned 4. And my eldest had just turned 17. And so he would come. You met Lewis first, right?
Yes.
It all blends in weird. Oh yes. So I'm a moon thumper. I love full moon nights like tonight. This is amazing that we're here the night of the full moon.
Yeah, it is.
So he met Lewis in November. So it was a month and a half after we started dating. He took Lewis and I to go take pictures on this mountaintop with the full moon. And
What mountaintop?
Well, it's a hilltop.
Or a hilltop. Yeah,
over
that's what I
in
meant.
4 Lakes in Lisle.
Okay.
So
Yep.
there's a nice ski hill up there.
Cool.
So
Well, that's pretty cool.
And then, so he met Lewis that way, but Lewis would go in and out. He's a teenager, school, go to his dad's house. He was not always there. He would come over after Fabi was sleeping, the little one, or when he was with his dad. And we just managed it that way until, I don't know, maybe October, no, maybe
right around 3 months.
months. And then he would come over during the day, but he wouldn't stay over.
Mm-hmm.
And that didn't last for very long. That was maybe a month of that. And then we were all together all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, he came downstairs one night, I think, when he wasn't able to sleep or something, and he came downstairs, and I hadn't really even met him yet. So the first time I met him, he just like ran up and curled up in my lap. I'm like,
Wow.
yeah. So it almost made me cry. I was
Yeah.
like, whoa, this is crazy. So yeah. After that,
Had he heard of you yet?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's not like the strangers in the house, right?
No.
Okay.
I think that Alec had a similar experience.
It
with
was
you.
like our first real date.
Yeah.
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 It was a strange place. It was new in the sense that it felt so normal. And there wasn't worry. Both of them had met other people in passing, but it wasn't the same. It wasn't really, I'm going in, and this is shame on me maybe a little bit, but it wasn't, I'm going into something with someone who I think this is the person. This is my person.
So they felt the difference also.
I think
right
so.
from the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was awesome.
Very cool.
So where does your relationship go from there? First 2 months, boom. It's like you guys are together a lot, and then what?
Well, we spent pretty much every minute that we could together, and we just started to kind of build from there and hanging out with the kids and doing things together. And then it came down to a point in time where my apartment that I was living in, the lease was going to need to be either renewed or it was not.
Done. What was your feeling about her kids?
I thought they were great.
Did you know she had kids before you started dating her?
She told me, yeah.
Okay.
We talked about all of that.
And that was not an issue for you?
No.
I'd like to say that out loud, because a lot of women think that if they have kids, guys are not going to be interested. But I think a lot of guys are.
I don't think in terms of kids, it depends on who you are. For me, I've been around kids because of coaching and because of like the volleyball, competitive volleyball that I did for almost 20 years and all that stuff. So I've always been like a coach as well. So that makes it a little bit easier for me to kind of transfer that over to dealing with kids. So that was a little bit easier for me. So it just depends on who you are.
Yeah.
But I think, honestly, if you really, I feel like in terms of speaking of that topic, sometimes women spring that on their partner after they've spent some time with them. I think you're better off telling people
Right up front.
Yeah, and just saying, hey, look, this is my situation, and let them figure it out. Because if they don't want to hang out after finding out that you have kids, they're not the right person anyway. So
yeah, and what's the point of going through it all until you get to there? That's a good point.
Yeah, so essentially, it just came down to the point where I was like, hey, listen, this is where it's at in terms of the lease agreement or whatever. So what do you want to do? Should I renew my lease, or do you want to give it a go, or how do you want to work it out? And we sat down and talked about it, and we came to the conclusion that we wanted to give it a shot and see how everything goes. And so that was it. I moved in. I think it was about 4 months in or so.
No.
Was it
was
longer?
It was like 6 months later.
Okay.
So we went through all of October, November, December, January.
It was like April, wasn't it? Or March?
It was April.
Okay.
So like 6 or 7 months.
That's
Okay.
still,
That
that's
was
pretty
fast.
quick.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
pretty
yeah.
quick.
Right?
So, but it just came to that crossroads where it was like, okay, and I told her, I said, it's okay. If you're not ready or whatever, that's totally okay. But if you are ready, now would be a good time to speak up about that and say, yeah, let's give it a go or not. And so either way would have been okay with me at the time, because I didn't really have I don't know, it felt really nice. I was just going with the flow of everything that was happening. Everything felt very natural. So nothing was forced, and it was just kind of we go with it and see what happens and be honest with each other. And yeah, it worked out great.
Yeah.
Did you have any concerns about moving into her place?
No, I don't think so. I think for me, it's not really about like whose place it is or whatever. It's about like what's happening in the situation and how we could better our situation as a unit.
Right.
So it didn't matter. I mean, if I would have had a bigger place, she would have been moving in. They would have been maybe moving in with me or whatever, but that wasn't the case. So it just made sense.
I'm glad you said that, because we're actually working with a couple right now where, you know, he gave up his place, moved into her place, and these are places that they owned, right? They moved into her place, and he's feeling this loss of things that he had, right? So, and they're having a hard time kind of making it our place, right? And it's kind of what you're talking about, is making the us.
Yes.
Right?
And I think that has a lot to do with, you know, as a couple, when I came in and moved into her home, you know, essentially, she made it very inviting for me. Like there were certain things it wasn't like there was all these rules in play, and it wasn't like we were both working together as a unit to make things better, to better our furniture, to better our, I mean, whatever, all that stuff was just to make it better. So I never felt like she was like, well, this is my place and you're moving into my place and it's my place. She never made me feel that way.
Yeah.
So, but every couple is different. Every situation is different. So, you know, that might be something to consider if maybe.
Well, I think that's really the only way that it works.
Yeah.
Really.
I agree.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if you're going to move in together, you got to get a new place.
Yeah.
Not into one place or another, but a new place altogether.
What
That was
kind
kind
of thoughts were you having?
Yeah, that was a little bit of mine. So I had a little resistance to us not find, or like I felt a little, of course I wanted him, that's why it happened. And I had talks with both of my children, and everything was great. But do you remember, babe? I was like, I just feel like, you know, I want it to be your place too. Like I want it to be ours. And I wasn't sure, it wasn't that I could not make that happen. It was more worry and concern. Again, we're 6 months in. Is he going to feel that this is ours? And so there was a little bit of a, maybe we should move in a new place altogether, you know?
Yeah.
And then we talked finances and, you know, all of the grown up stuff. And we just decided that a year into where we're at would be ideal and we could figure it out later. And there was no weird friction. There was nothing.
Did you guys do anything specific to make it feel like it was in us, the place?
We fell in love.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was like when you
Well,
moved
like for
in-
us, yeah,
you moved into my
we
place.
repainted the bedroom.
We redecorated together and
We
made
got,
it like
like,
an us space.
Yeah.
But it's your place. Like you owned it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a little bit different. See, we
You're
rent.
renting. Got it.
So in renting,
You can't do it, that
really.
kind of stuff.
I mean, you can,
You
but
can
you're gonna
buy
lose
new
your butt. you know,
sheets and
We did do that.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we bought new sheets,
Uh-huh.
and we obviously kept my old ones and his old ones, which we use periodically. But we bought new bed clothing, and we took out a bunch of my furniture and incorporated his furniture into
Right.
the layout of the house. And I did a lot of cleaning out. It was so funny because I'm like, I don't need all this stuff. I love stuff. I have a lot of stuff. But I'm like, I'm getting rid of the movies and I'm getting rid of the books that we don't watch or don't read. And he's like, no, don't do that. Yeah, because I'm making room for your stuff.
You love
I
stuff
love stuff
too?
too. Yeah.
We love stuff. And so I did. I'm just like, I'm getting rid of all this shit. Who cares? Let's take his shit in. Yes, we're going to do it like that. And it was great. It was
so
so
your stuff is commingled.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah. So
it is
everywhere
very
you
much
look,
so.
it's like you see weapons, and then you see plants, and then you see moon stuff, and then you see videography stuff. So it's just, it's great.
Yeah, and again, that goes to speak volumes with regards to our lifestyles and our life philosophies and how great they gel together, and that's very important. If if you're focused about the way your place looks, then you may be a little bit more resistant to that change. But if you're focused on the goals that each individual has and how you can support one another, then that whole mingling of stuff doesn't really matter that much.
Right.
I mean, if it's a complete overhaul, that's a different story. But to combine it is like, well, yeah, because I support you along your journey and you support me along mine. And so she understands there's certain things that need to be in place for me, and I understand there's certain things that need to be in place for her. And I love going into her office and smell all the, like, there's like the oils, and she has like the incense, and she's doing all her stuff and all her books and everything else. And then right there is like a Springfield XD45 on her desk. You know what I mean? Like, she's got her firearm on her desk along all the other stuff. So it's like, it's great. You know, that's her firearm, but part of me has been incorporated in the way she lives, and vice versa. So it's like, it's a really nice thing. Yeah.
You know, I really like that, because I think too much today we try to not hold our own separate space and cherish those differences. And we try to merge and blend too much where both people get lost. I know we did an episode on why we disagree with compromise.
Right. Well, you compromise too much of yourself,
Yeah.
right? You compromise your values and everything in order, and I call it collapsing within a relationship, right? Where you just kind of give in to your partner in a place where you really shouldn't.
You lose your identity.
Exactly.
There.
Right.
And there's a real sacredness in knowing yourself and how you express that in the world. And to lose that, whatever that thing is I think that's really sad. And I think relationships are about mirroring those things to each other and seeing those edges, which I think are awesome. So that's really cool that you guys live like that.
Yeah.
So what kinds of messages did you guys learn about relationships from your past, and how did that impact your relationship today?
That's a very heavily loaded question.
It really is.
It really, really is. So I think a lot of people get caught up, and sorry to take the lead on this one, honey, but I feel like a lot of people get caught up in the failures of their past. And they get caught up in that, like, you know, feeling like they're not meant to find love. They're not meant to heal. And so I say that your past actually creates and has created every fiber of who you are today. So if you've obtained self-love and self-acceptance, which most people have not, but if you've obtained that, then that's a blessing. And now you can, you know what I mean, as long as you're with the right person that has also obtained that can work very well. If
sounds like synergy.
Yeah, very much so. It is very much so. And that's important, because I think a lot of people don't even really know what they're looking for. They don't really know what self-love means. It's kind of talked about, but unless you're really seeking it out and taking that journey. And so everyone in your past has led you up to this place. So it's like, you know, you look at the past and it's like, well, that was screwed up, but look where I am now. And if you're happy where you are now, which I am,
if you learned from it,
you have to learn from
Right.
it. If you don't learn from it, then you get stuck in those patterns that we were talking about earlier, and then it's like a repeating psychosis where the same thing keeps happening over and over again, and there's no changes made, and there's no understanding of how you keep finding yourself in the same situation over and over again.
So what you're saying is that you're not supposed to look for your partner to do all the work?
What?
You have to do your own work first.
I need to write this down.
Well, I think meeting the wrong partners can lead you to do your work.
Yeah.
I think that's all
but
part of
it's
it.
still your work. Yeah.
It is your work,
It's
but
huge.
you know, and to really understand that, and sometimes you need certain things to push you, and like nudges, you know what I mean, universal nudges to push you in that direction. And sometimes lessons have to be learned, whether it's for you or for them, whatever the case may be. And so I think we both were along those paths of learning a lot of those tough lessons, and then eventually healing and being able to find that self-love and that self-acceptance. And that's an important thing. If you don't have that, then it's difficult to love another human being.
Right.
So
Yeah, I'd say mine would be that same lesson. Just one lesson, one of many, getting to the point where I was not going to accept from another person anything that I didn't deserve. And I went through a lot of this with all types of relationships in my life, particularly romantic, where I was snubbed out. Like my fire was completely taken from me. That's not a fair way to say it. I gave up my fire for someone else to feel comfortable.
Well, we're clearly domesticated to believe we're supposed to do that.
100%.
That's a very common feminine journey.
100%. I was 100% conditioned through a bunch of different things that happened during the course of my life to allow for my dreams and my integrity and my fire to just go out so that the other person felt comfortable. And it came to the point where when I decided to work on my trauma, my childhood trauma, and work on myself, and the same thing he said, the self-acceptance and the self-love, and for me, a really big one is self-compassion. And until I started to work on those things, I was not ready to be with another person. And that I learned that through those people. That was the lesson. You know?
What in your life, what work in your life did you do in order to get to the point where you knew that you had to work through your stuff? Because it takes a level of self-awareness and self-esteem to say, this isn't a normal thing that you're supposed to go through, or I'm not supposed to feel a certain way about myself. There's something else. And I think that work happens before you get to work on the trauma.
I don't know that it was work right away. So I'd already been working on myself. I'd already started digging in deep to figure out why I was allowing different things to happen.
Did you learn that through like other relationships where you didn't feel good in them?
Oh, 100%. It was relationships. In particular, a good example is being put in a position where like this psychosis of it'll be better next time. It'll be better next time. And I continued to allow people to treat me poorly and make me feel like it was my fault and make me feel ashamed of myself. And so it was a pattern of those types of relationships. And that pattern of the things I was accepting from people married in very well to the way that I felt when I was a kid, when I was a child. And when I noticed that, when I realized that there was a very, very tight parallel between how I was allowing men to treat me and how I was treated as a child by people in my life, I realized that I had to take myself out of that situation and work on my self-love and self-respect. That was a big thing for me.
I think those are really blurry lines.
Yeah.
You know, to know the difference. Obviously, when you're a child, you don't, the way children think is if I'm not getting the result I want, I should change. That we really seek and learn through acceptance. So if we get the grade we want or we get the experience we want, it's because we did something right. So if we're not getting that, we believe we did something wrong. So people will think, well, if my parents are getting divorced, it must be my fault. Or if they're an alcoholic, it must be me. And so there is a level of conscious awareness that happens at some point where you go, maybe this isn't me. And I think that's a really difficult thing. And I think some people never get there.
Especially if you're getting messages from your primary caregivers, right? That you are wrong, right? Or this is what you should be doing because this is right, you know? And it's very hard to trust your gut and know inherently inside what is right for you.
Yeah.
Well, I think the other aspect of that as well is that there's many different parts to us. And so it's understanding which part is raising their hand to take over per the particular situation. And so for me, I was also a trauma, I would call it thriver now, but initially I started as a victim at the age of 4, and then I was surviving for a long, long time. And then eventually I got to a point where it was like a 34-year-long storm that finally dissipated and the sunlight and the rays shined through the sky, and I looked up at the sky and I said, what the fuck is that? And I was like, wow, that's amazing. And I've been stuck in that place ever since. So the healing process for me was very long, but I think I think a large part of that, in terms of learning through your old relationships and getting through where you're coming, is understanding that something is wrong and making the decision that you're going to win. You have to do that early.
Do you remember anything that was like an aha moment after 34 years?
Wow. I mean, my journey was so long, but there was many moments when I beat myself up over things that I did and not understanding why I did the things that I did. And then, having another part of me do certain things, and then me have to cope with the consequences of those things, and not understanding why. And so you start to point the finger at yourself and going, there's something wrong with you. You're broken. You're crazy. You're this, you're that. And it's like, yeah, I wasn't crazy, but I was definitely traumatized. Yeah. And so when you start to kind of look at those things, I think for me, the aha moment is like, kind of like, man, you just almost died. So you might want to start to rethink, like, these plans, these strategies are not working in the way that are most conducive to your survival. So I needed that stimuli in order to affect me in a way that I was going to make those changes and start working towards it.
So did you have an experience where you almost died?
Oh yeah, I had a lot of experiences where I almost died.
Were you both, did you both have similar traumas as children? And when did you find out that you both were trauma survivors in your relationship?
I'd say fairly early on. I mean, that's something that we discussed fairly outright, because again, the whole time aspect of it, like, we didn't want to waste time. So it's like we let one another into each other's worlds early on, so that we knew for sure that this person is understanding that, yeah, I've been there too. I'm capable of dealing with certain things that, although we've healed, there's still going to be the post healing things that we have to cope with.
Battling the demons.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. We actually had a very similar childhood in a lot of ways, in terms of not having a whole lot, which that's not a problem in and of itself. If there's love and there's tenderness and a lack of neglect. But then there was neglect on both of our, in both of our households. Primarily when we were small, we were both raised by, not raised entirely, but our primary caregivers were our grandmothers. And then there was the sexual abuse, which I've told you, Jean, about. So there's that.
Me as well.
Yeah, that's the commonality.
That's the common trauma.
And then we had common ways that we dealt with it. And we had very different ways that we dealt with it as well.
Are you talking about dealing with it or coping?
Responding. Oh, yes. So the byproduct. So the adult version of us, the way we presented ourselves to the world and got through it, without realizing why we were doing the things we were doing. So, and I think both of us had those real, like, potent aha moments in our early 30s, shortly before we met. Mine was a little, I had mine sooner than he did in terms of when we met. So his happened shortly before we met. And mine was maybe 3 years prior, where I realized that, this is the question we were touching on earlier, and my monkey brain led me away from the answer. I realized that the things that I was doing, including allowing people to treat me poorly, were because I was conditioned to be that way when I was younger. And I was very angry in my earlier part of life, very angry and volatile, and put myself in dangerous situations. And my children changed that to a certain degree. But it wasn't until my Saturn return, as I call it, when you hit that 29.5, 30-year mark, and you're like, wait a minute, there is more to this. There is more. Why am I suffering so much? Why am I suffering so much? Why am I in this position where I have a wonderful family, I have tremendously amazing friends, I'm intelligent. I'm capable. I'm physically capable of having a great life, but I'm suffering. And there's a lot of sadness, and there's a lot of confusion and self-loathing. Why am I allowing this? I would not allow my sons to feel this way. I would not, or that's not the right, I didn't say that right, but I would not
support them.
I would
to
not
think that way.
support them
Right.
to, nowadays I hear something negative from one of my sons' mouths about themselves, and we're quick to correct that. And there just came this time I was probably right around 32, and I was like, wow, this is gonna end. Like, people do not get to treat me like this, and I don't get to treat me like this.
It was going to end because you were choosing.
I was choosing it.
Yeah.
And there wasn't a aha moment. It was just, what the fuck?
It's almost to me like a chemistry. Like there was a point in my life, I definitely put an energy out there. I don't know if I had a kick me sign on me or what that was, but I know that I was treated in a way that was really bizarre, that people would talk to me that way. And then I know today nobody would talk to me that way. And I don't know if that's an energy frequency shift or what that thing is, but it's almost a subconscious or energetic thing that happens, And I remember one profound moment, and I think you guys will both hear me when I say this, for me was when I realized that particularly my dad was not unwilling. He was unable. And that made all the difference to me, because it's not like you're sitting here going, if I just could do this and this and this, he would finally bestow on me the acceptance and approval and all the things that I craved from him. But it was that he had no way to give that to me.
He was not equipped with the
incapable.
tools.
Yeah.
He wasn't equipped with the tools.
And that's when I knew it wasn't me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would agree with you. I think that people in the realms of survivors or thrivers, or people that are trying to overcome their hurt, those around, I think if you understand that someone has that type of hurt, like they've come out and they've told you, hey, look, I was sexually abused by so-and-so at this whatever, that people should do a little time, if they care for you, to do some research and educate themselves about some of the byproducts that happen to people from having those types of experiences. Because from my family as well, I feel like they're unable because they were unwilling to do the research. They were unwilling to sit down and be like, okay, so the sexual abuse happened. Like, a lot of people want to cope with it. It's like, oh, just get over it.
Right.
But it doesn't work that way.
No.
And not only that, is you may actually get over the actual incident, but because of the way the people in your surrounding,
It re-traumatizes you.
It does re-traumatize you, and it then shines a light on the toxicity of that actual relationship.
They wanted to do the ostrich thing, just bury
Yes.
your head in the sand.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And when you do that, you're minimizing the person's pain and their hurt,
Right.
and you're not legitimizing what is happening.
Do you think most people do that because they haven't dealt with their own trauma?
100%.
I think that's definitely part of it. I think the other part of it is shame and guilt of being, having that association with.
Well, the shame and guilt is for not doing the work to overcome their stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, there's other people that
Or
had
they didn't
not,
see it, or they didn't know.
Right.
They couldn't see the signs.
There's definitely like this tremendous stigma with regards to, say if it's a family member. Like, for example, my abuser was my father's brother, my uncle. And so, that's an immediate family member to him. So how is he supposed to deal with that issue? Like,
Right.
that's a tough issue.
It
in itself.
disrupts the whole family.
Right.
Absolutely. So rather than disrupting the entire family dynamic, they decide to just sweep it under the rug. And then
Right.
the
a
victim,
very common
once
experience,
again,
unfortunately,
absolutely,
yeah.
for most people, I
Yeah.
would say it's that way.
I would even say we live in a time that whatever happened to your uncle to become a person like that, you have more resources and more education, more awareness to be supported in your journey than unfortunately he probably did, which is really sad. But it's a whole system.
Right.
And then, if it's like, you're too loud, why don't you just shh, and we'll all be okay again. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a commonplace thing from people that should actually have like a support system in their loved ones, and instead their loved ones turn out to be toxic for the victim, which is not their intention, but that's what happens when you decide to sweep things under the rug. So educate yourself, people. Pick up a book, get on the Google machine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ask questions.
Do you guys have any resources that you would recommend for family members?
That's been
of someone
helpful
Yep.
for you guys. Yeah.
I do, and I can't think of the names right here, right now, but
Okay.
I will definitely give them
We'll
to
put
you.
it in the show notes when
Yes.
you get back to that. Great.
I have some forums, some talk forums. It's all about storytelling. It's all about just talk about it. Just
Yeah.
talk about
With
it.
someone who's safe.
In a safe place.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I think one time I was sitting at the dinner table, and it was my father and my mother's brother, another uncle, and my father made my uncle's a police officer, and he made a comment about him busting a pedophile. And so my father made this comment about, if someone did that to my kid, but this is after he knew.
Oh, wow.
So
Yeah, just
that's
he
a really
compartmentalized it totally.
Absolutely.
Right.
It's just like one of those,
image.
ego,
That image thing.
ego
Yeah.
thing
Yeah.
to say that
It's
in
like
front of my
this
uncle.
is separate from this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so things like that, people got to watch out for stuff like that. You can't really say that, you know what I mean? To say, if someone did that to my kid, or if some, even if you don't know, like, that's not necessarily true. There's very few people out in the world that take like a vigilante stance on protecting their kids. I had an aunt that committed suicide a number of years ago, and her brother and her older sister were all sexually abused by their uncle.
Oh, wow.
For a number of years, and the brother killed himself, and she killed herself 5 years later. And so when you get to that point of and the parents their reaction to it was, well, God'll sort it all out, and so that's a bitter pill to swallow.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Because there's part of me that agrees with that. Like, I get it, but in the same token, like, I don't really agree with that, because, for example, like my uncle, like, I told my entire family back in Europe, because he's back in Romania. If he was in the States, he would be gone already. I was in a place in my mind long time ago that I was like, before I reached that forgiveness, that I was like, I would kill him if he was available to me.
Present,
if he was here. So I overcame all of that, but that's just a bitter pill to swallow, to like have that mentality of it. But you got to understand, when you're looking to retaliate in that type of fashion, you're actually creating more trauma for yourself, and you're attaching that person for long term. Like, they're never going away.
You're the one that's suffering.
Absolutely. So that forgiveness, people think you're forgiving that person. No, you're releasing.
You're not letting it have power over you.
Yes, you're releasing your hurt off of yourself, and just getting at the.
I just want to say, because there's people out there, unfortunately, way more than not, dealing with this topic, and it's such a painful thing that people do commit suicide over this. It's a really big deal. But you guys are both hope that there's ways to work through that, no matter how much pain you're in. And I'm sure you guys have been in gobs of pain over this, and that there is hope, and there is ways to help yourself, and it probably will not be your core family. It'll probably be outside of that.
It will not.
Yeah.
Even
And
if
seek help.
Yeah, even if they are willing, which a lot of the times is not the case, because the great point that you made, Jean, is that they're not equipped with the tools. And there is that shame factor that I can't imagine. I sent his mother a message one day, coming from the perspective of a sexual abuse survivor. At that time, I still kind of felt I'm surviving, And as a mother, the shame.
Yeah.
She's got to, and it made my heart hurt for her, even though there was some estrangement that happened. I can't imagine that. The core family, they're too personal in that story, even if they weren't the ones who did it.
Right.
So, but
I've not talked to my parents in 3 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because of their toxicity with regards to how they deal with, how they treat me with regards to that. Like, we want to sweep it under the rug and stuff.
Right.
And things of that nature. My father, especially, my mom said some dumb stuff last time, but my father was not altogether with it in terms of those
just
things.
completely denying and not supporting.
Not denying, but like just not healthy.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
just not
Sure.
healthy. Not
Sure.
healthy for me. And it's like I'm in a really good place. I have an amazing wife. I have amazing children. You know what I mean? And it's just not worth dealing with that. I'd rather just push it aside and be like, hey, look, you be over there, I'll do my thing and whatever.
I don't know that all families are so ill-equipped as his parents. Like for my family, they're all supportive. My core family, they're supportive, and they're so willing to listen to my pain and my
Was
story.
your abuser within the family?
Yes, there were a couple, and one of them was my maternal grandfather, and then there was another that I'll just leave at that.
Okay.
And then, like I told you guys earlier, my parents, the people that I call my parents, are my maternal uncle, so my biological mother's brother and his wife. And they, well, my dad, I guess he doesn't know as much as my mom. He might now after today or after.
Once it comes out.
Yeah, we'll see. But the story's coming out. It's all over the place now. So it's coming. It'll hit the fan soon. But my mom is really supportive.
Is it part of your story?
It is. Yeah.
So let's just give a little shout out
Yeah,
for that story,
sure,
right?
yeah.
So Mary and I are both in a book called Overcoming Mediocrity, which is
Yeah.
coming out in December. And it's about women's stories who have overcome a difficult thing in their life to become more,
Yeah.
you know.
Fearless women.
Fearless women.
Yeah. Fuck yeah.
And that will be available on our website.
Yes.
By
when it comes out.
when it comes
Yeah,
out,
right.
December, January-ish.
Yeah.
So, you know, and like you said, that storytelling and
Yeah.
for other people to, you know, hear your guys' story. You'll hear our tagline at the end that we say we get wounded through relationship and
Yeah.
we heal through relationship. And by telling our stories, we can heal.
Yeah.
And so if there's people out there dealing with this topic, you know, find safe places to get some help.
Yes.
Because the work works.
It does.
I was going to tell you with regards to hope that you can, you know, you said that we're kind of showing people that there's hope that they can overcome. The truth of the matter is that anyone and everyone can overcome.
You just have to make that choice.
You have to choose in the beginning that no matter what, you're going to win.
You're not
No
going to stop.
matter what, you're going to keep going. And you have to figure out every avenue possible. So I went through 7 years of therapy once I started working on myself. And I went through, after the therapy, it was like slow moving. You know what I mean? Understanding how my brain works, understanding the physiology, understanding compartmentalization, understanding dissociative disorder, understanding all those things was very slow. I went through 5 sessions of Reiki. That shit fucking like, I mean, it
Yes.
seriously,
Yes,
and it really
That's
what
that
it
spiritual
yeah,
aspect.
what
You
Right.
just have
what
to.
it did for me
Yeah.
was it allowed me to focus in on the areas that required the work, whereas I was putting in extensive work, but I was putting it in maybe the wrong areas.
Yeah.
And so those helped me. And the best way I could describe it, if no one's ever done, if you're out there and you've never tried Reiki and you think it's like a, you know, hocus pocus or whatever, I can tell you this so you can relate to it. Okay. It's like having a mushroom trip without the mushrooms. That's the best way I can describe it to you. That will help you like better understand if you've ever done mushrooms.
I don't know that I would agree with that.
Well, I don't know, but that's what it was like for me, and it helped me like find my
You know, one
way.
of the things that you're talking about, I'm do energy healing as well.
We're both Reiki master
Yep.
teachers, right?
Very cool.
Yep.
Yes.
And you know, you guys know when you go through trauma,
It stores in your body.
It ruins
Right.
your brain development.
Oh yeah.
Right? And so the neurons in our brains are very flexible. But if you don't hold a space like that, how are, you know, and what does it require? Safety and new experiences. What's that word? No, whatever the word is for new experiences. You have to have the two. You have to feel safe,
Right.
and you have to have something new. And then the brain can rewire itself. And so the conscious work you're doing can only do so much if you don't go down and fix the stuff that your brain's trying to redevelop. And that's why stuff like Reiki, acupuncture, all those kind of things are so beneficial, because they're working at that deeper level, which is where actually the trauma is stored, what you were saying.
Yeah, they found that, the stress, like consistent stress, it prevents the dendrites of those neurons to reach out and connect with each other. It also, impacts the telomeres and the DNA, and shortening them, which causes illness and aging and all that stuff. So, when we have security, especially in a relationship, that's when we can really create that healing, right? That healing space.
My healing accelerated just off the charts after he and I passed maybe the 6-month mark. And I was already healing. I'd already reached that conclusion. Like, I need to own my shit. I need to work on me. I am the teller of my story. No one has control over me. I'm not going to allow anything or anyone to have power over me anymore. And we didn't meet that first day knowing that we shared that story. That came out.
Except both of your frequencies had shifted.
Not consciously.
Yes, that's exactly what I was getting at. So we didn't meet knowing that. But once that came out, and it was a genuine thing. So I'd met other survivors before, and not thrivers, survivors for sure. And there just wasn't that feeling of this is safe and this is going forward. So that stagnant energy is really toxic. It's really, really toxic. And when you find someone or you meet someone, or you enter a relationship with someone who does not have the motivation to make change, it doesn't matter how much you have in common.
Right.
And so he had entered this point in his adulthood. It was shortly after your aha moment, right, babe? Maybe within the year, was it? That he was like, woo, the sun is out. I met him. We already know, had we met prior to that moment, we wouldn't have gone anywhere.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Because I was actively working on bettering myself, and it was really fucking hard. It was hard. Right. And there's only so much that people can support. You've got to do the work yourself. But it came out that we were on that same path as well, and we were just able to show what I like to call divine support. And there is a whole lot of truth to that unconditional love. We had to be really super unconditional with one another, and really, really step up to plate, like take one for the team sometimes, so we could overcome some of those. Like, we're here, we're doing it. There's self-love, there's self-acceptance and respect and compassion, but there's still that backlash of trauma that comes out.
Oh, sure. There's still going to be triggers, right?
Yeah, triggers and patterns that you're
Yeah.
used to, though. So you get triggered, and it's like, oh, this pattern is here. This is what I'm going to do.
And you can't successfully work through a trigger with someone who's not willing to allow you that space.
It's really interesting to listen to you guys talk, because in our history, we both went through the toxic stuff and met same time, right? And now almost 23 years in, through menopause, it all comes up at a different level. And the work that we do in Couple Synergy is we actually teach a formula so that you can learn how to heal your partner. And so you guys are talking about this individual work, and that is absolutely the foundation of everything. If you're not doing your own work, you're never going to even get to a healthy relationship. But even once you're in a healthy relationship, nobody teaches you how to do this, and
no, I mean, the level of
what so
understanding that you guys have to get to in understanding each other's triggers and being able to recognize it in the moment when it's happening, and then be able to apply this emotional first aid for each other. I mean, that is so dynamic. It's like just like super level type of work here, right? Wow, that's really amazing.
One of the things we tell everyone is the person sitting next to you is the person who could hurt you the most. And heal you the most. And so I'm so glad you guys found each other. It's very, very cool. How'd you guys get engaged?
I don't know. I don't know.
It's not the most exciting story, to be honest.
It never is, by the way.
The true engagement. So the true engagement is very exciting. We had two.
Okay.
There were two moments, right?
I'm thinking of the bad one.
Okay. Well, okay. So
Wait, let him tell the bad one, then you tell the good one.
or
Or are they intertwinkled?
they're not. But I just want to say he will tell the story because he tells it best. But my family, no one knows this story, so no one has heard the bad story.
They will now.
Rhonda knows.
Does she?
Yeah, Rhonda knows.
Were we drunk
told-
one day?
Yeah,
Maybe we were
told
drunk
her.
one day. We told mom.
No, so I decided I was gonna pop the question. I ended up getting this ring. The whole time she was like, I want this one ring. It was like $140. I want this ring, whatever. Like that was just her mindset on it. She's like, I don't want this whole thing, whatever.
No
so,
diamonds.
Yeah, so I went out and ended up getting something that had diamonds around it, but it was a ruby ring. And I had it on my person, and I was like nervous or whatever, but I had it like in my pocket, and we were at home, and she was in the kitchen just doing the dishes and doing whatever, and I'm I'm trying to move the ring so that it doesn't. I'm like, where could I put it? And I put it in my I think I put it. I don't know if it was my
Your
jacket
hoodie-
pocket, my
a
hoodie
hoodie
pocket, and I had my hands in my pocket, and she stopped doing the dishes, and she turned around and
I tried to hug
she
it.
tried to put her hands in my pocket, and I
Don't touch my face.
Pocket? I tried to hug you. I tried to slide my hands around you, and he didn't reciprocate, and I felt that was weird.
So she, so she was like, "What? Like, what's going on, or whatever?" And it was just like, I was like, "Well." So there I went, and I busted out the ring, and like right there, in the kitchen with her hands wet for doing the dishes and all that stuff. And the kid was home, and he was running down the stairs, and it was just
He's
like the worst
misbehaving.
possible timing ever.
And
Or real.
I think it's important to know that it wasn't when I was hands-free hugging him. I turned back and I had my hands in the soapy, dirty
Your
water.
hands.
But yeah, it's,
And he's like standing right next to me, and I'm like, you're in my space. You're in my space. What is going on right now?
yeah, it was just terrible timing on my part. It was terrible. I bombed really bad, but she said yes, and
Did you turn around and ask her? Did you get on one knee? What'd you do?
I got down on my knee and I asked her if she would grow old with me, and she said yes, that she would. And
then I said, but we have to talk about this later.
yeah, because the kid was right there. So it was like, it was just such bad timing on my part. It was terrible.
What did he think?
Who?
Your son.
He didn't see it.
He didn't
He was
see
like,
it, but it was distracting.
Yeah,
you
there
don't
was-
think you're going to be proposed to when you're washing dishes and you're in your pajamas, and then I think
washing dishes.
Yeah, and I think there's something to be
Were you
said
using
about
palm olive?
I don't know, but my hands were
Makes your
soapy.
hand soft.
And then I can't remember exactly what he said, but he was explaining the ring to me. He's like, this is not the official ring. And I kind of was like, wait, so is this not the official?
Is this
what
it?
does
Is
that-
this
like,
not?
what-
Like, what's going on right now?
Why wasn't it official?
Well, it wasn't the official actual ring itself because I wanted to get her a nicer one.
He wanted
So- You
got
diamonds,
one.
and I did
got-
not want diamonds.
Yeah, I got one that was like okay, I guess, but it wasn't what I wanted. You know what I mean? And so-
Basically, he wanted to cuff me and get that
Cuff.
Me.
He wanted, that's what he calls my wedding ring now, is a cuff. He wanted to he calls it a finger cuff. So he wanted to cuff me and just
That's
get
funny.
that done, and then we'd go and he'd force me to wear a diamond ring. That's what it
And
was.
so
What you got on? Show the
I'm
camera.
wearing a diamond ring.
Oh.
Well,
He
it,
had his
it
way.
worked.
yeah, so that's how it went down. I don't know what she was thinking saying yes to me, but I'm so glad she
Where's
did.
your ruby ring?
It's at home.
It's too big. I wore it on my middle finger for a long time until this one came along. But yeah,
So
yeah.
so that's how that went down. But
What's
you know
the
what?
second one?
So the second one was more, well, so the second one happened when we told everyone, because no one knew at that point. with the ruby ring on my middle finger. And we didn't get to the point where he was angry at me that night that he proposed to me. He was upset because of the way I responded.
I had expectations and I was wrong.
Yeah.
Expectations.
And we were watching
That'll
a
do it.
movie with the little one, and he would not. We're super physically affectionate. We're always touching one another and looking at, and he just wanted nothing to do with me. And me, I have to be I have to create that space for my little one that he doesn't understand or know that there's something going on. So it's just, okay, when he goes to bed, we'll talk about this. And we talked, and I was able to explain why I was, like, I didn't think he was being serious. You know, I know that
He didn't have the right ring.
I'm such a
well,
jackass.
no.
you know?
In my mind, that didn't matter, but he seemed to think he didn't, because he mentioned this is not the official ring, and I guess my expectations were I wouldn't have been doing dishes, and he didn't mean for that to happen either. It's just he got caught off guard, blah, blah, blah. So we didn't tell my family about that. And then a few months later...
Hello, family.
Yeah. A few months later, we were like, so let's start talking about this. And we were talking on the phone. And he was driving to work, and I was at home. It was like 5 a.m. And he's like, well, let's do it like for real. So we talked about it, but it wasn't like official,
Yeah.
And he FaceTimed me, and he's like, will you marry me on FaceTime,
Was he in like the other room? Or
No,
something?
he was driving to
Oh,
work.
he was driving. Okay.
Yeah.
Were you doing dishes?
I was not.
Oh, what were you doing?
I was just sitting on the couch.
Nice.
Like, I don't even remember. Just I was on the couch. And I was like, of course. And then it was official. Then it was, Facebook official. Then we went shopping for rings.
FaceTime official.
Yeah. Then it became a known thing because
So you
it
guys
wasn't known.
met through the internet and got engaged
on
through the internet.
Yeah.
The world
We're
we live
internet
in.
couple.
You
You
never know.
got married in person though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Twice.
we have a story.
Twice.
We
Let's
have
hear it.
stories.
You got married twice?
Yeah.
So before we tell this story, so family knows, but there aren't a lot of my friends. None of my friends who were at the wedding know this. So, ta-da!
You're gonna know now.
So we had the big wedding on March 24th. That was for all
Of
the
this
family
year.
and everyone of this year.
Of this year?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
But there was something recently.
That was this year. So this week was our 3-year that we met anniversary. We got.
Is that what you guys went out for?
Yeah.
Okay.
This week.
Okay.
But in March of this year, we had the big, beautiful wedding. It was gorgeous. All of our friends and family had the first commune, But that was our 1-year anniversary. So we
Yeah.
did.
Oh.
Yeah.
and we
Yeah.
didn't
Scandalous.
tell we didn't tell anyone except for a few people that had to know.
Detrimental. And
Yeah.
my maid of honor.
So there was a few people that knew, but very few. But that was because we didn't want to ruin the wedding for
My
the
parents.
family.
What was your thought process of why having the first one and then the second one? Money.
Oh.
Insurance.
Yeah. We had. I have really great insurance through the union, and so we were sitting there and we were talking about everything, and it was like we were trying to save money to pay for the wedding and do all that stuff, and we were gonna end up saving if we got married and got the insurance squared away. Then we were gonna save like almost $500 a month.
That's a big factor.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Yes,
We've heard
that's
other
a lot of
couples
money.
like not want to get married because they're going to take on someone else's student loan debt.
Yeah.
Right.
Like it's going to be factored in and they have
Yeah.
to pay more.
Yeah.
Finances are a really big
Yeah.
part of all that.
Today's day and age.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
absolutely
so,
is.
So we talked about it, and at first she was a little bit like against it, kind of like, no, I want it to be the day of and this and that. And I said, listen, if that's what you really want, then that's what we'll do. But just understand, $500 a month is a lot of money.
Yeah.
So, and then she went and talked to a few of her friends, and they were like, yeah, I would do that. And so she came back, I think maybe like a week later or so, and was like,
And it was a week before our wedding date.
Yeah.
And we wanted to do it on the day that we were getting married the following year.
Right.
So we had a week to plan a wedding.
right. So yeah, we had our wedding.
Yeah.
We actually got married at the downtown River Walk in Naperville
Oh,
on
cool.
the bridge.
Yeah.
So we had like a 10-minute window. It was kind of chilly out that day where nobody came by.
Yeah.
And we got married on the middle of the bridge there in downtown
Nice.
Naperville. It was really great.
That's
Yeah.
a quick ceremony.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
My best friend, who was my maid of honor both times, her and her husband were there, and her husband's sister, who I'd met numerous times because of their wedding, it was our officiant.
Cool.
So
Oh, cool.
it was my best friend and her husband, the officiant and her husband. The 6 of us went out to eat. We just had a great time, and then we had the same officiant marry us at the
formal wedding.
the formal wedding. Yeah, and a week after the wedding, I just couldn't take it anymore. We had to tell my parents.
We didn't want them to find out
Yeah.
Right.
in
Yeah.
another way.
Or in a
somehow.
podcast or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
whatever. So you never know, right? So,
There are going to be a lot of people who are like, what?
so they were at first they were like, what? Like, so it wasn't even real? They said
It wasn't real.
So I told him a few days prior, we knew it was coming. As soon as we are with them next, we are telling them. And I said, my mom is going to go, and my dad's going to go, and his forehead's going to wrinkle. And that is exactly what happened. And honestly, they're going to hear this. I've already said it to them. They both had a little bit of a look of disappointment. Like they, a little bit. And then I immediately felt guilty. And I'm like, listen, this is why. You cried, Rhonda. And then my dad and I had a choreographed dance.
Yeah.
And I said, you were so happy every
took,
week
like, dance
going,
lessons.
and we took
Yeah.
lessons, and like it
That's
would have
cool.
been different. And my dad said, you know what, you're right. Like it would have been different for me. And then after that, everything softened, and I was like, shit, am I in trouble?
Well, because we've heard of other people that that got married and everybody knew, but then they had the formal wedding a year later or so.
Right.
And people were like, "Oh,
It
who
was-
gives a shit? Like
it
they're
was-
already married."
yeah.
So
Yeah, we didn't want to take that away from people.
Yeah.
Again, expectations,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we actually podcasted a couple that got married because he enlisted. And so, I mean, it's really very important. to
Luke
be
and
able
Ashley.
Luke
Yep.
and Ashley, be able
Yeah.
to be on base and, benefits, all of that stuff. And then had the wedding,
A year later,
A year
wedding
later, yeah.
a year later, right?
which
Ours
we went
was-
to, which was lovely.
Oh. Ours was a year to
And
the
her
day,
dad
so it
didn't
was
know.
nice. Oh,
The moms knew, but not the dads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can understand. Like, I can't imagine our older son, Lewis, who's in the Marines. He's in the military.
Thank you for your service,
Yeah.
Lewis.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't imagine him getting married and not telling me, and then like having a wedding and telling me later. Like, I have pretty awesome parents though, so they're like, all right, we can gel with this. Now it's a joke when we're all
Yeah.
together. Like, what did
2
you not tell us?
engagements,
They-
2 weddings.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
when we were telling them about it, they thought we were going to tell them that
I was pregnant.
she was pregnant. So
I was like, no.
like, no.
Do you guys want more kids?
No, I've had my tubes tied.
Okay.
So, and that was a conversation we had early on as well. Like to me, it was important to know what he really felt about that.
How did you make that decision? And how old were you?
I made that decision 2 days after I gave birth to my younger son.
Mm-hmm.
I was still in a relationship with his dad. Not the best relationship, and
So
I didn't
not the
want
same
anymore.
day. You waited 2 days and had a really big surgery.
Well, no. So I actually had the procedure when my son was 3 months old.
Okay.
But I
You
made
made
that
the
decision
decision.
as soon as he was born. Like I just don't. Again, I was still in that place where I wasn't honoring myself so much. But what I did know is I didn't want to have any more children,
Yeah.
and that was my way to ensure that. And he knew that right away. I'd say within a couple of days of us meeting. And I'd say before he moved in, but after we were official, we talked about that one night because it's reversible, but I don't really, it's
not your
safe.
decision.
Yeah, like I just, and he was really wonderful. He said, whatever is meant for me is going to be for me. And if it's you and your children are my children, that's wonderful. If that doesn't work and it's someone else and I have my own, that's okay. Like I'm going to accept whatever it is. And I was like, fuck yeah. Like he's a keeper, right? And
It's
so
a huge thing,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Well, I just looked at it as, Fabian Lewis is going to Marine Corps, so he wasn't really going to be around, so I wasn't going to have that much like of an impact on him. In terms of that, he's much older, but Fabian was 4 years old at the time, and I knew I still have like a number of years to make an impact, and so I was going to treat him as my own, and I didn't have to change any shitty diapers, so
Yeah, right.
Bonus.
it worked out okay, so.
No potty training,
Yeah.
that fun
Yeah.
stuff.
Do you find that interesting? It just dawned on me that you met Fabian at the same age that you went through your trauma.
I do find that interesting, and I also find it interesting that he reminds me a lot of me in terms of personality. Like, as I was a kid, he has a lot of the same tendencies.
Mm-hmm.
And so it helps me to help him better because I can relate to him in a greater level. And so we talk about certain things like that as well, like anybody hurting him or anybody like touching him wrong or anything like that.
Right.
Like he's well aware of what's going on, what's okay and what's not. Now the messed up thing about trauma is that sometimes it gets buried so that you would never know until the person is older and ready to cope with something like that. But in terms of doing everything that I possibly can to ensure that something like that doesn't happen to him, or that he's prepared to do whatever is needed to do in case something like that were to happen, is an important factor for me.
Well, also, in helping him, you're also kind of helping yourself too.
Yeah.
That younger part of yourself heal, which is really amazing.
Yeah. I mean, there's always learning and teaching, right? You know what I mean? There's
Right.
learning and learning, and there's learning and teaching. So it's all relative to who you are and how you approach those things. I kind of approach martial arts in the same way. If you win, then you learn less than if you get your butt kicked. Now you've got some things to think about. So
Either way you learn.
either way you learn. You don't really lose. You either win or you learn.
Do you feel you also have a soul connection to your kids?
I do very much so. I feel very much at home and like connected. It's a tremendous feeling. I'm very, very happy, and I'm very fortunate, and I'm very appreciative of everything that I have in my life, and that comes from a place of, life could have gone a million different ways for me, and it almost did many times. And so for me to be where I am today after everything I've been through is just absolutely amazing. And so that makes me very, very happy. It's great. I'm having a great time.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really awesome. Yeah.
So, last question. What is it that your partner does that they love you?
He sacrifices a lot. So there's some validity there, the sacrifice, but also he tells me. And there's a lot of this, like, so when we look at one another, I can feel that, and there's, I don't know how to explain it. It's, he just shows me in everything he does, his small actions, his big actions, so we're both in the 5 languages of love. We're both touchers. There's lots of touching, lots of compromising, lots of keeping space for me where I feel safe. And there's a lot of sacrifice. And for me, I know that sacrifice shouldn't be maybe a marker, but for me, I feel with him that's a marker because I was a package. So.
And there's other people that didn't sacrifice enough for you.
Yeah.
For me, I feel like, especially earlier on, like her patience really helped set the standard and helped me to be able to go outside of my patterns of distrust and previous experiences. And some of the things that I did earlier on when it came down to trust that were pattern based, and she really helped me with that. And so that's helped like develop me in a different way and come up with different skills and develop different skills and different, ways of being able to cope with that. Like, just help me be more balanced to know that even though I'm screwing up, she's got my back and she's not going to hold it against me. And so her patience really shows me that she loves me very much, because like I said, especially early on, I'm not saying earlier on because she's lost patience since then. Please don't misconstrue that point. I'm saying earlier on because earlier on I was utilizing maybe more of my patterns, those automated responses to some of the things that were going on. And since then I've developed, but that has been possible because of her patience and her love. So, yeah, her patience is amazing. She that's really an inspiring thing. Patience has been a learned skill for me. I'm not the best at it. I'm not always the most patient, but she really inspires me with that. So I think that's really one of the biggest things. Yeah.
And, as you guys keep each other in a place of safety in the world, it'll get better and better and deeper, and it's really wonderful. Relationships are amazing if they don't suck.
If they don't suck.
Yeah. Little caveat at the end there.
That was great.
Yeah.
Guys, we want to thank you so much for being on our podcast today. This has been a quite an honor for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for having us. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
And all the best and all the success to you guys. You guys are doing a great job and helping people, and that's amazing. And I think we're along those same paths as well. Even though, they say all roads lead to Rome. So she has her way, I have my way, you guys have your way.
Yeah.
But essentially I think we're all dealing with human potential. So
Yeah.
Absolutely.
yeah.
Right
Right.
on.
So it's awesome to meet you guys.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you
Nice to
guys
meet you
too.
too.
Thanks for having us on, and we appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure.
We get wounded through relationship and we heal through relationship. And human beings have been sharing their stories for thousands of years to heal, bond, and grow. We hope that by you guys sharing your story, it's enriched your lives and the lives of our listeners.
For all you listening, please subscribe to our podcast and leave a review on iTunes. If you have any questions, comments, or topic suggestions, please email us at contact@couplesynergy.com. For more information about Couple Synergy and our programs such as Relationship 101, the Couples Weekend Intensive, and our premier program called Couple to Couple, look us up online at couplesynergy.com. Until next time, synergize your life, synergize your love.
You have been listening to Couple Synergy with Dr. Ray and Jean Kadkhodaian. Couple Synergy was recorded, edited, and produced by Dr. Ray and Jean Kadkhodaian. Voiceover and music entitled Breathe and Let Go was recorded and composed by Gina Gonzalez.